I'm Heather, and I've been with KW almost 10 years. So I've done a lot of condos, so they always ask me to teach this class. I'm not perfect at it. I don't know everything there is to know. I've had a little bit of experience with it. So, am I good to start? Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I have kind of an outline, but like Michelle's already said, she has a question about escrow stuff, and we can talk about that. But what kind of questions did you guys come in here? Like, what did you come in and say, if I could just get this one thing out of this class? Was there anything in particular? Some people, it's like, you don't know what you don't know, right?
There's something else. I want to know what you get together, say, when you're listing it. Do you make sure you get those HOA docs? Do you make sure you get the rental history ahead of time, ready to go for potential buyers, and put it on your MLS listing in the docs?
Okay, I'll tell you what I get about that. So we'll start there. All right, when I list a condo, I do get the rental history. Will get 1 or 2 rental projections from management companies. Condo docs, I probably already have one file, because every time I do a deal in a condo, I save them, right? So, but you can always get them on public records. It's easy to find them usually on deeds and records. But I have a condo questionnaire. I just got in trouble with that. Not in trouble, but I have a questionnaire that I'll have the association fill out, and it's like, what are the HOA fees? What's included with the HOA fees? I kind of list out everything that's on our our form. I'll ask,
You do a questionnaire and the HOA fills that out for you?
Some do, most of them do.
Really?
But I just had I listed one at Summer Breeze and they filled it out. This is a really small association. They have Pew's bookkeeping, but they self-manage. I mean, there's like 35 units in the whole building or something. And I put it under contract, and now the lender needs their condo questionnaire filled out. And they're going, we already filled that out. It's like, you didn't fill out a lender. They thought what I sent them. So they were like refusing to fill this out for that for the lender. And I just told my seller, I was like, you're going to have to get involved, because you can't get along in this property if they don't fill out the condo questionnaire. They finally did. But it was a nightmare. So that's typically what I do in a list.
Hey Heather, it's Wendy here. So hey. Your condo, hi, how are you? Thank you for doing this. So your condo questionnaire is different from the lender. That's totally separate.
Oh yeah, no. Okay. Matter of fact, I told Jeannie that we need to put, it just says, I don't know what I have at the top of it. Maybe I don't even have a title at the top of it. I told her, I was like, we need to put listing info questionnaire or something like that, so they don't think that it's a lender questionnaire going forward.
I got you. And that's something for your records, and then you also send that to the title company as well?
No.
Okay. Okay.
I just want to have as accurate information as I can in the listing. And sellers will tell you, oh yeah, my fees are $600 a month. They don't know. It's auto drafted. It's probably $615 or $625, and they just think, oh, it's $600. I just don't like to. I mean, some are very accurate, but I just don't like to provide that kind of information based on the seller's word.
And the minute, I'm just surprised that the HOA is agreeable to doing that.
Let's do more. I mean, you have to ask Andy, but I don't think we've had to really push back on it.
Cool.
How come are you seeing a separate, like yearly or bi-yearly assessment of, say, insurance or something like that on top of the HOA?
I've been seeing it less and less, but I can probably tell you we're going to start seeing them more and more because insurance rates are going to start going up, and some associations are just going to make the choice to not assess. To not increase the monthly rate, but to do the assessment. But we'll kind of come back around the assessment. So because these ladies that are brand new, they probably are going assessments. I mean, do y'all know anything about condo assessments? Not really. Yeah. So we'll come back around and I'll go into that a little bit deeper. But on the escrow, so since you're leaving at 1:30, I'll talk about this. So as y'all know, we had Hurricane Sally, and there's a lot of condos with damages. And they're going to have what we call a special assessment, more than likely, because They have deductibles that have to be met on the insurance. There's things that are gaps in insurance coverage, like boardwalks. Those things are not insurable. So what I'm doing on my condos that I put under contract is, if the assessment's already been paid, great, fine. You know, I just tell my buyer, if I'm representing the buyer, you know, that's not the be all end all. They might, like Sugar Beach, for example. I have one under contract there right now. And I talked to Robert Stewart, who's his company manages the HOA. And I said, you know, they've already done an assessment. Yeah. And I said, so, and he said, look, Heather, when the dust settles, he said, we don't know. There might be another one. But see, there's a way to know that. My buyers chose to just be okay with that. But for the ones that I've gotten an escrow agreement on, there was no assessment that had been assessed yet. Like Turquoise was one, Island Royale down in Gulf Shores. When my buyers were closing, the assessment hadn't been done. So we had Andrew McKinney. He's an attorney. He's at the professional land title office. He wrote up an escrow agreement. It's $250. The buyer and the seller split it. He's holding the money in escrow. I did one where Betsy held it because we did the money in escrow because it was for a short amount of time. But the agreement spells out exactly, you know, what the assessment's for, the time frame. And then once the assessment is levied, then he'll disperse the money. And so like my Island Royale, the assessment ended up being like 11 something. We had negotiated 10,000. So the buyers of the property had to come up with, you know, like $1,500 or something. Yeah. The one at Turquoise that I negotiated, the assessment's less than what we negotiated. So
Really?
so the sellers are going to get some of that money back.
And then what about plantation?
That was a mess.
Yeah.
Which the Gulf Shores plantation, which building?
The Rock Club.
Is that the one that's getting completely done?
They've had an assessment, like they've already had one,
Yeah, they did, but then it's still.
and then they're going to have an insurance assessment, I think, in April.
Yeah.
Have you got one under contract there? Because there's several
We
pending.
just came from a listing presentation that we're doing next. We're like, how are we gonna figure this out?
I just usually wait till you get an offer, and if it comes due before they get an offer on it, then they're not paying it.
Yeah.
But that's just get negotiated.
But you do get an attorney to draw that up. That's not something that's done for the mortgage part of it. This is separate.
No, as a matter of fact, the lender doesn't want to know anything about it.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask you. I knew there was a
Because
fine
that's
line.
gonna be, they're gonna go, what's wrong? Why is there an escrow agreement? Is the building damaged? You see, it raises all these red flags.
Got it.
So that's just why an attorney does it.
Okay.
Any other questions to that specifically?
You,
Huh?
can you hear me, Heather? Yeah. Okay, so do we know anything more about the Freddie Mac new rules with, you know, investors? 'Cause I have somebody buying a condo in his business name. Is that gonna, we haven't been able to close because of Sally. So how does that work?
I'm gonna have to say, talk to your lender, because those are all so new. We're still trying, I'm still trying to understand them. The lenders are definitely, you know, they
Okay,
would know more on it than I will, because they're in it every day. But
Gotcha.
I don't know, Deborah,
okay. That's a good way to start. That's what I'll do.
sorry. Who's the lender?
It's somebody out of Louisiana. I don't have the file in front of me.
Okay.
Easier with a local lender, I would suspect.
But Louisiana lenders, they know this market well enough. Is it like a bank in Louisiana, or is it a mortgage broker?
It's a bank that he has
Like
his
a
business
small-
accounts with.
The small local bank? Yeah, they'll probably be okay.
Okay,
But I would talk to them.
okay.
Any other questions on that?
How do we figure out if it's warrantable?
The lender a lender that's versed in the market. But let me tell you what Joey Parker told me. We should have had a lender here. Joey Parker's my go-to lender, has been for 9 years. And what he told me was, he said, Heather, he said on Fannie Mae's website, or maybe both websites, I don't remember. He said we had a list of all these approved condos. He said it's wiped clean. They took every one of them down. So they're having to, which they have to do a condo questionnaire on them every time anyway, but they're having to like fully get these properties approved again. So I can tell you, found out Gulf Towers, not Warrensburg.
When you mean by warrantable means able to get a mortgage on?
Well, that one you can't get a mortgage, but you have to put 25% down.
Oh,
It means you can't get an FHA. Yeah.
I would never try an FHA or VA or
Yeah,
that's on
I know, yeah.
condos anyway.
The other thing you gotta worry about is if it's under a certain number of like residents, then that's kind of like.
So one of the big things that usually makes them warrantable, non-warrantable, well, I'm not gonna say warrantable, what makes them, as a second home to be able to put as little as 10% down versus having to put
Right.
25% is their budget. That's a big part of it. The lender, and look, this is pre-guidelines that just came out. So everything's kind of, I feel confused now, and I used to not be confused about lending on condos, but it's all these guidelines are so new. And then when you read them, the way they read, not a single condo on the beach is going to qualify. So the lenders are literally, it's one contract at a time trying to figure out if it's going to be worth it. So what Joey Parker is doing, let me go back. So the difference is their budget. So that Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac wants to see that association is putting at least 10% of their income into a reserve account. And if they're putting 9.9% in that reserve account, it's going to automatically require 25% down. So it's a difference of limited review versus full review. So there's two questionnaires that that a lender will send to a condo association: limited review, full review. If the association can answer the questions on the full review all properly the way they want to see it, you can put as little as 10% down as a second home. And I talk a lot about second homes because that's what I deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I very rarely somebody buying this for,
Right.
I think you can put as little as 5% of its primary residence. I think it is. So, but if there's one thing on that full review form that is not checked right, then they're going to say no. So the lenders, and this is one of the reasons a local lender is good, the local lenders kind of know, like, this association, I need to do a limited review for it. This association, I need to do a full review. Yeah. So if they have to do the limited review form, it's like a page or so of questions. It's a lot less questions than the full review, and it's going to require 25% down as a second home. So that's pre Fannie Mae, new Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac guidelines. There was something else I was going to talk about on that. I started going down bunny trail and I was like, let me come back. Joey. So Joey Parker, and look, I'm not saying you need to use him, but this is why I use Joey. Number one, if he gives me a thumbs up on somebody, I know I'm going to closing. But right now, the benefit for clients to be working with a bank that will do condos, no Regions, no Chase, no Bank of America, none of the big banks, but a local bank, is because if they get into it and they find out with these new guidelines that these properties no longer can qualify for Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac financing, they can flip them over to a portfolio loan. Do y'all know what a portfolio loan is? A bank loan? So that's a loan. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, for you guys that are new, maybe you'll know, maybe don't. That's what most people, so when people go borrow money, they usually get a loan that's backed by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac because they can get a conventional fixed rate, 15, 20, 30 year, and it's fixed for that time. So if they go a bank loan route or portfolio loan, that's a loan that's held within inside the bank, and the bank itself is taking the risk. And so that would be like an adjustable rate mortgage. So that would be what we call a 5-year arm, a 7-year arm, a 10-year arm. So you have a fixed rate for that 5, 7, or 10 years, but at the end of that time, it adjusts to whatever the market rate is now. So you could either refinance it at that time, or you could just have an adjustable rate mortgage. So a lot of people got in trouble in the mid 2000s with those because they had all these balloon payments and they couldn't, the rate adjusted. And anyway, they weren't educated when they bought these properties. And anyway, they got themselves in a situation.
So on the portfolio loans, they don't sell those off.
They keep it like, yeah, that, so see, they don't have to adhere to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac guidelines. It's whatever that the bank, the board, or, you know, whoever makes the decision within the bank. Yeah. What other questions or anything? So I'm gonna kind of start looking at my list here.
What's the best way to reach out and communicate with the owners to see if they want to list a property? So whatever you call that.
Cold call?
Yeah, just cold call.
Yeah,
But I
cold
mean,
call.
but what's the best way to go about finding out who the owners are and getting their phone numbers?
CRS. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of programs out there. There's what's that one Ricky Cruz wants to talk about all the time? Red X, the Geo leads and Red X, Google. I don't know.
Okay.
You've been doing it long enough, but you're not doing a lot of cold calling.
And I need to be. It's not that I wanted to stop. It's just I've gotten busy and I just don't have time.
We all hope to, but we aspire.
But I have
to get
done
to
my
that.
fair share of cold calling, I assure you. So, and calling expires, I've stopped calling expires, unfortunately.
But you have referrals now. I mean, you've been doing it so long, right?
Hey,
We don't want to
Wendy.
get
Wendy here. I have a quick question. So I did my first condo, of course, coming from an area where we didn't have any condos, and just something, maybe this just is helpful tip to tell people when you're filling out an offer, because I felt like I looked silly when I put it in there. I asked for a certificate of elevation and a survey. And the listing agent kind of schooled me on it, of being like, yeah, you don't really ask those things for condos. So do you have any other helpful tips that you would maybe give to us? Like, do we do termite still inspections and things like that won't make us look, like it's our first deal?
Yeah, let me get Danny to print. Let me get Danny to print a copy of a contract so I can just kind of go through it. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Financials.
Yeah, but yeah. That's all.
Want me to
in there.
ask
It's all
on my
in
way
there.
out to do it for you?
So we'll do that, Wendy. Danny's gonna print me a contract, so I'll just kind of go through it line by line.
Okay.
So yeah, one thing with the 2020 rental history, were you making an adjustment for that, or for a lot that had to close down, or kind of what?
I just get projections. Yeah, I always, like if it's my listing, I'll get the actual rental numbers if it's available, and then I'll get usually two rental projections. So I'll have that to provide. And then from a buyer's standpoint, I get the rental history. If they don't have anything or if it doesn't look very good, I'll go try to get a couple projections. So.
I got two projections on one place recently. One was like 38, one was 49. Two different projections.
One was really decorated
Yeah.
really nicely, huh?
No,
Or had a great
same
view?
time, same time.
Yeah,
Same condo.
yeah, that's interesting.
That's a giant discrepancy.
Well, I would look at,
Hi, it's Abby Epperson. I'm new to the office, but I had a question about, are there particular condos that you know of offhand that do not allow short-term rentals?
yes. Yes.
Do we have a list like that we know of? I
No,
mean,
but let me tell you what, I had a conversation with somebody that's on the MLS board this week. And I proposed that they make that section of the MLS a little bit more meaningful, because right now it just says rental restricted. Well, rental restricted to me and rental restricted to you and rental restricted to you could all look different.
yeah.
So us down here at the beach, we think short-term vacation rentals. But if there's a house up in Daphne that says you can only rent it, for 1 year at a time or whatever, I don't know. It's a different frame reference. So they're going to propose that they do a drop down. And the drop down will say like a 1 week minimum or a 2 week minimum or a 6 month
6 month
minimum or a
minimum.
30-day minimum. So I have brought that up to them, and that is on, they're actually meeting tomorrow. We're gonna discuss it.
That's a
So
good idea.
She said if it gets changed, it probably won't change until April. So just FYI on that.
That's a great idea.
So, on the Alabama side, the ones that restrict rentals, the Sands of Romar Beach, Nautilus, Opal, hold on, I'm like trying to run down the beach in my mind. On the beach, I feel like there's one other one, and I'm not, that's all that's coming to mind right now off the top of my head. Oh, Perdido Quay,
Okay,
and
so-
Perdido Place, I think both of those have rental restrictions.
Okay, because I have a buyer that's going to be buying in the next 2 weeks. And because this is actually going to be my first condo sale. So do I just go on the MLS and I can look if it says yes restrictions, then I can just verify. But off the top of your head, I can go with these.
Yeah, are they buying it to be a rental?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah, most
it's
of
going
them
to
are
be,
rentals. You just need to, if it's on the beach, most of them are fine, but just if you're concerned about it, just verify it with the listing agent or ask them to send you the condo docs and you can read through it and see if there's any restrictions.
and then I also noticed that a lot of them have restrictions with pets. Most of them just say no more than 2 pets. Do you find that any of these buildings have a restriction on the weight of the pets?
Yes. So you'll find restrictions on the number, you'll find restrictions on the size, you'll find restrictions on if it's can guests, if like guests or renters can bring pets, you'll find restrictions on the type of pet. You'll find there's some that say no pets, like Summer Chase in Orange Beach, no pets. Plantation, no pets. Huh?
Sorry, quick question. When you say no pets, is that owners too? Because
The owners too, no pets. Yeah.
So am I asking the HOA these questions or the property management? Because when I called 2 of them, I called the property management and they said they didn't know, like, meaning they didn't know whether
The
they were.
property management company, yeah, they probably would know. The listing agent should be able to tell you.
Well, no.
And
Oh,
then
well,
you find out who manages the association.
yeah, the listing
HOA.
agent didn't know either. They just said, yeah, you can have them, but they didn't know anything about the weight. And that's what,
Well, then I would ask for the rules, the bylaws, the condo documents, including rules and regulations. 'Cause it'll be in
okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
But like Gree, for instance, I think 30-pound dog max. Okay, 35, Francine says.
Unless
Anyway,
they're on the deed. Unless they're on the deed. If they're
Gotcha.
on the deed, they can do more.
Hey, Abby, and also just from past experience, I asked a listing agent about short-term rental and they told me yes. And I just double checked and it was actually no. I can send you the contact to the city zoning of Orange Beach, Griffin Powell. You can shoot him over any address and he'll tell you which zoning it's in and which restrictions are. Because sometimes listing agents really don't know what they're talking about.
but that won't be. for
Yeah, that
condos.
would
That'll
check
be-
it in.
Oh,
that'll-
so he
that'll
doesn't know the
be-
zoning for condos?
Well, it's the restrictions are in the condo documents.
No,
I
I'm
mean, he
talking,
might have that.
I'm talking about the short-term rental. If it's for the rental, he can tell you, but not probably anything to do with the dogs, of course.
Rentals can be restricted via the documents. So I would just make sure that he's got the information from the documents. That could
Of
be
which
on
condo?
the HOA level. Yeah, for a condo,
Okay.
for a condo. I mean, he might know, I don't know, but I know he could tell you for single family, but I don't know if he knows it all for condos.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the difference between condo and single family residential.
Wendy, can you put his number in the chat?
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm gonna kind of get to my list real quick because I'm kind of jumping around and trying to miss something. So I'm gonna talk about this and then we'll talk about the purchase agreement. All right, so loan officer, we've kind of talked about that. I don't think there's anything more we can cover on the financing. Copy of the condo documents. You can find condo documents in public records. So if you need to know, something about the association, you can always pull it in public records and look there. And then if it's not there, reach out to the River Managers Association and try to get a copy of their rules and regulations, because sometimes it's in that. But the things that you can find limited in condos are the rentals, are pets, parking. A lot of times you look at the condo documents and the unit comes with 1.3 parking spots. Okay. But parking will be, restrictions could be there. I think that's it on that. Budget, we talked about the budget. So part of the contract, and we'll get to this, but in our purchase agreement, it is written in that about the financials and such. So we're going to talk about that in a minute, but that's all information that you're going to want to gather. Now, I'll tell you, condos can be funny about passing that kind of information out without a binding purchase agreement. So anyway, we'll get to that. Monthly HOA fees. So in a condo, there's 4 general ongoing expenses. You have the HOA fee, property taxes for the unit, insurance, HO6 insurance policy, and then electric. Sometimes internet, sometimes that's included with the HOA, sometimes it's not. So generally in the HOA fee, what's being paid is reserve funds. So you want a condo that's putting money in reserve account. Ideally, the lender wants to see at least 10% into reserve account. Maintenance of the common areas, maintenance of amenities, insurance for the structure, trash, water, sewer, basic cable, and then I'm seeing more and more associations go to where the internet is included with the HOA fee. Sometimes like termite bond, pest service, things like that could be included as well. Now on the insurance, there's some associations that said, years ago or either recently has said, we don't want to, our insurance is at this price point, maybe it's gone up. We don't want to raise our HOA fees. So they do what's called an insurance assessment. So they either don't budget for the entire premium or they don't budget for the premium at all on their monthly, their budget. And so once a year, each homeowner pays their prorated share of the insurance for the building. And that's what we call an insurance assessment. And I do think we're going to see, so when I first got in this business, I saw a lot of insurance assessments. And then insurance premiums started coming down and I saw some kind of go away. I think we're probably going to see them come back now that we've had our.
How lucky are you in getting those insurance deductibles and everything from the HOA? Are they willing to give you that?
Deductibles, like on the insurance, or you're talking about the insurance policy deductible?
Right.
Well, per this, per what's in the contract, they have to provide the insurance information for the insurance.
Just on a contract, or can you get that up front?
It's part, well, I mean, they're probably not going to give you their
Okay.
insurance information
Are
up
you
front.
gonna list an agreement there?
No, this is a purchase agreement.
Oh,
So under the condo disclosure section, it says that they have to provide you a statement describing any insurance coverage provided for the benefit of the unit owners. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll just send you their declaration page, and I think the deductible's on there.
do you find that a lot of buyers ask for that? I mean, that's something I would ask for. I think so how good is the insurance? Right? If I'm paying an HOA fee for it that includes insurance, I'd like to know what the deductible is to know if I ever have a catastrophic event, what is my assessment?
Well, I mean, that's something you can certainly request or write in, but it's a lot of times it's on. I think it's on what they send with their declaration for their master policy. Insurance. On that, so let's kind of go to this. So in this contract, it's a list of items, and I'm not going to go into this, but y'all will want to pull your contract out and look at section 32. It's all the items that the listing agent or the seller is supposed to provide, and then the buyer has 5 business days to review it. I'll tell you, agents are lazy. They're gonna send you the bare minimum and they're gonna say, here, see if it's good. So you gotta really watch that because they will try to overlook half of what's in there. But it's all valuable information. It's, the meeting minutes, the last 2 HOA meeting minutes, the last 2 board of director meeting minutes. And why that's important is the buyer needs to see, what is this association discussing? Like, are they talking about a big project? Is there mention of an assessment? Like, what might be coming that they would need to know about? And so those are very important. The financials are very important. Those are probably, for me, the 2 biggest things that I want my clients to see. I want them to see how much money is in a reserve account, how much money they put in a reserve account, like what is their income, what's their budget like, what are they spending money on. So, but the other thing in here is there's supposed to be a statement about the HOA fees. So again, what's in the MLS, and I've had that happen before from a very large prominent agent here. The HOA fee he had in the listing was wrong, and it was actually much higher than what he had in the listing. And so this is supposed to confirm with the HOA. The association is supposed to confirm it. That's part of it. If there's any litigation, you're supposed to have a statement on that. Anyway. All right, so upcoming projects, special assessments.
Talk about that section 32. Is that, I'm not familiar with exactly what that is.
This is the section where it says that the condominium disclosure. So if you're writing a contract on a condominium, you don't want to check that box. Do not, because this is all. If you don't, then this is all the information they have to provide. This is the most recent one. It was updated September 2019. I guess it's the most updated one. Special assessments. Yeah, and so when we talked about the meeting minutes, something else I was to say and I lost it. Annual and special assessments of projects. All right, we talked about the monthly dues. We talked about down payment. HO6 insurance policy. So this is a contents and liability policy, and it basically is supposed to pick up where the master policy stops. Okay, so the master policy can vary, and I can give you all kinds of insurance information that's probably, it gets very confusing, but depending on when the condo was built, they may or may not be required to have what's called an all-in insurance policy. An all-in policy means that they're supposed to put it back the way it was when it was built. So like cabinets and flooring, countertops, things inside the unit, but it was there when they bought it. Now, I believe I've learned through this Sally, because I'm still learning stuff every day. Like I have somebody that owns a condo complex, in a condo complex, was built in 01, and their sliding glass door was broken, and that was their responsibility to get it fixed. Well, it was there when it was built, so they had an exclusion in their condo docs. They had some language in there that got them out of that. So that fell on the individual owner. So that's important to tell your clients they need to read those condo documents when they get them, all 168 pages or whatever it is. But if it's an all-in policy, they're supposed to put it back the way it was built, okay? So the HO6 insurance policy would need to pick up basically where that master policy stops. So one of the things I'll tell my clients, look, if you buy a condo and the master policy is an all-in policy, but somebody has ripped out cabinets, or you're ripping out cabinets, you're ripping out countertops, you're putting, taking carpet out, putting on woods, whatever, you're upgrading it. They'll need a rider on their HO6 policy to cover for those upgrades. Because I think there's some people that found out that they didn't have coverage like they thought they did after the storm.
So we only have coverage up to the pre-renovation.
Well, so the association, with the association, their insurance is going to put it back the way it was when it was built. So if it had carpet in the living room, that's what they're giving you for mica countertops. But then if they had, hardwoods in the living room, they had quartz countertops, they had custom cabinets, they need some coverage for that gap. And that there's a rider they can get on their HO6 policy for that.
condo company.
I mean, in theory,
With Ryan.
in theory, yeah. I mean, this is supposed to, your HO6 is supposed to pick up where the master plans are. And I will tell people want to use their like insurance person in Memphis that they use. It's really, you agree, it's probably better for them to use a local insurance person, because what that insurance person up there is going to say, oh, we can't do the wind and you're going to have to do this, and they end up paying an astronomical amount for insurance that's really not necessary. So
So it's like talk about the all-in insurance policy. Is that something the condo association has?
that's the master insurance policy for the association. If the condo complex was built before, I think it's 91, they're not required to have an all-in policy. So the individual's HO6 policy would need to cover for countertops, cabinets, floorings, things like that, that were in there when it was built, but their master policy is not required by their guidelines. It was a law that changed in Alabama in 91.
Or you say anything built beyond that should have an
Supposed to.
all-in?
By law, they're supposed to, yeah. So the buyer can ask the HOA. So, but part of that's what's going to say, part of this HOA due diligence, I always give the client, a buyer client, the contact for the HOA. I even give them a list of suggested questions, because sometimes they don't even know what they need to ask. So I kind of give them a list of like, hey, you definitely need to ask this, and think of anything else that you might have a question on. And I connect them directly, because I never, ever want to be in the middle of that information, because that opens you up for liability. So if they like, I had somebody that wanted, that just closed on one, and they had a dog. And I said, well, look, right here's the rules, the restrictions, and it says it's fine, but you need to call the association as well. And they did. You know what I mean? I prefer for them to talk to them directly and never rely on anything I tell them. Something else, let's see. So on the insurance, some associations, even though they're not required by law to have the all-in policy, like they were built in 1987, they have it. A lot of them have elected to do that, but just know that if it was older than 1991, they're not required. So on the HO6 policy, that's what to say. So you can get the rider for the upgrades. They always put a loss of use rider, which covers you for rentals that have to get canceled because of an event. There's also an assessment rider, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but I always tell my clients about it. I think it has to do specifically with a name storm. I don't know all the things about it, but I always tell the client to ask their insurance person about it. Have you know anything about the assessment rider?
A little bit about it. It does have to be a name stormed, and then there's a line in there that says something about a natural act of God as well in that insurance policy. So I mean, most times the name storm, and it's the condominium act of 92.
92. Thank you. Early 90s. But that's the one that changed the requirement on the insurance the association has to carry. All right. Yeah, payment HO6. Taxes, I'll just kind of touch on this really quickly. This is part of what I do when I educate buyers on the property taxes. Do you guys know the difference in the assessment values? 10%, 20%, second home, primary residence, second home, and then investment. Okay, so real easy. On the Alabama side, if it's a primary home or second home, is $330 per 100,000 value. If it's an investment property, it's going to be $660 per 100,000 value. So if it's a primary or second home, they assess it at a 10% rate. If it's an investment, the county's going to assess it at a 20% rate. Well, actually, somebody that owns a second home, our homestead exemption is actually only about $45, I think. Somebody that has a true second home here, they don't rent it. They basically pay the same rate you and I do. It's when they are going to rent it, and the county will go online and they'll look from time to time, and if they see your property's a rental, they'll just switch it to the investment. But if you have a client, and this is kind of a side note, if you have a client that's buying a second home type property and they are not going to rent it, you need to educate them. You need to tell them like 3 times. When you go to have this assessed in your name, be sure to tell them it's a second home, because the county, if you don't tell them, they're going to automatically put you in investment category and assess you at 20%.
Heather?
Yeah.
Are you are people that rent their condos here, are they required to use a property management company or can they do it themselves?
They can do it themselves.
Okay,
Uh,
they,
There's no, and they can use whatever management company they want. They can do it themselves. It's up to them.
and you just go to the city and get your license number for short-term rentals and,
Yeah, you have to get a business license.
okay,
Funny, sir. You have to get a business license to do that.
Oh, yeah, the city's gonna require you to have a business license. I think they're like $150.
Even if
Yes.
it's self-managed.
Yeah, you got a business license. Huh? Yeah, you have to pay that, once a month, the lodging taxes. If you have a management company, they'll pay it for you, because they collect it. You, as an individual owner, you never see it, but, if you manage it yourself, they have to go online once a month and take care of those lodging taxes.
do you know offhand what the lodging taxes, the combination lodging taxes are?
Is it 14% now?
13 in Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, and 7.
Can you repeat that?
I couldn't hear that.
It's 13 in Orange Beach and Gulf Shores, and it's 7 in Fort Morgan.
13 and
Okay.
7 in Fort Morgan, 13 Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, 13%.
Okay,
Are you talking apart?
Because Fort Morgan's outside the city limits.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. It's after you're outside Gulf Shore city limits. Okay.
Those Phoenix all suites I've dealt with, they've had to use the on-site management.
That's
there.
right. That is one. The Phoenix All Suites, East and West, you do have to use that because that's a condo hotel. Like that's a true condo hotel, and you do have to use that on site. And like every unit has to look the same. But so that is one. Is there another one?
Is Escapes to the Shores
Huh?
one of them also? Escapes to the Shores?
I don't think you have to use. I mean, didn't you used to work over there?
Yeah, but I
You have
never,
to use-
yeah, but I don't know
own
what the
it,
policy is. I
If you
mean,
own it individually, I don't think you have to use that on site. I might be wrong.
okay,
I think that was my cousin.
Palm Beach and, yeah,
So Palm Beach, that's a good point. Palm Beach, Escapes to the Shores, those both have timeshares in them. You cannot get conventional financing, period. Those are non-mortgageable. You cannot get, the only kind of loan you could do in those buildings is a portfolio bank loan. Because lenders do not like timeshares. Taxes, rental limitations,
What's the tax percentage in both? There are very few places that will allow you over 30 days.
Less than 30.
less than 30 days. There's some condos like they're over there by the Y. I think they allow vacation rentals. I have somebody want to do vacation rentals. We don't even talk about fully.
I had that one because I was there, so just maybe move into it later on if you want to.
If it's a condo, he might be able to. If it's in Foley, because I think they're called park. You can do vacation rentals there, but if it's a single family home, if it's not, I don't know what the city's take on that is, but if it's not in the city limits, it's probably fine. It's not in a coveted neighborhood.
Park Views and Gulf Shores, Park Avenue.
Park Avenue, is that who it is? Yeah, Park, that one. Yeah, Park View's over there by the park. By the boat hammer. Yeah.
I had to memorize that.
Park Avenue.
Do condos usually have the same closing time like a residential house, like 30 days, or do condos take longer, or?
I think my rule of thumb is 4 to 6 weeks, but I think it kind of depends on the lender.
Okay.
Cash sooner.
Right. But if they're financing, it's gonna be 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
Rental income, we talked actual projected. I mean, I always get the projections and I use the buyer report and I just kind of provide the information to people and let them deduct from it what they want. If you do have, I've never seen that big of a spread, but if I have them close, I'll usually tell people, probably somewhere in the middle.
You know what I remembered after a second? It's actually the same company, two different agents. One agent gave me 39, the other agent gave me 28.
My mom would be good gross. No.
Picasso.
Should have been rent, first rent without the. Huh, that's weird.
I was like, really?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Do you use the Meyer report, Heather?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I send it out to people all the time.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's
Ooh, that's
business
pretty much
license, real
jump.
quick, I'm sorry. So it's just a city business license, so if I have a state business license, I don't need a city, I guess I would need a city.
If it's in this, located inside the city limits, you'll need a city business license.
You rent.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't rent, you don't need it.
Right.
Sure.
Okay, we'll go through this contract real quick. Wendy, are you still here? She was the one that wanted to, she jump off. Y'all want to go through the contract? She was the one that wanted, I think she's gone. All right, so on condos, contract specific, anything on that? I will say this, it is my pet peeve as a listing agent to get this and all these be blank. Check mortgage, but all this blank. It drives me, well, you're probably one of them does it, aren't you?
Yeah.
He told me to make sure.
I know, well, it drives me crazy. Does it drive you crazy if you get an offer and there's like nothing written in there?
If I get one that says the exact amount, I asked them how the hell they figured that out.
Yeah. So
100%.
fill in, if they're financing, just take a minute to ask them what kind of terms they want. Okay, on the personal property, so that's a big part of the condo. So if they're financing the property, lenders don't finance sofas and chairs and linens and such. So what you want to do is go through and just check everything, and then this underneath part where it says no item personal property shall be transferred to buyer except those that are listed below or in paragraph 5 above, and I just put unit to convey as seen and the date that they looked at it. Now, I do take it one step further, and I have a kind of a bill of sale, if you will, that all parties sign that just say they'll leave the furniture and that it's at no value. So I don't know if I'm supposed to do that, but I do. Inspections, nothing different there. I always on condos, the insurance is really just the HO6, and I kind of educate my buyer up front what that's going to cost. I always put it in there anyway, but insurance contingency, in my opinion, on the condo is not as big of a deal because the HO6 is usually very reasonable in cost.
Typically know if there needs to be a rider added to the HO6, so.
I just tell
May
them,
not favor.
I just tell them to talk to the insurance professional about it, on what riders they might want. Is that what you're asking?
Do you know it's been updated or not? In other words, off the master.
I mean, I can usually tell. I mean, if you go in and it's a 1989 construction and it's got granite countertops and shaker style cabinets and tile throughout, you can tell. It doesn't look like 1980s. Yeah. Internet, I don't put internet contingencies on second homes, investment properties, unless they tell me that the internet speed is super important to them. I'll leave the termite stuff in there. I mean, concrete buildings, port in place concrete buildings on the 26th floor, you probably don't need a termite inspection, but I'll leave it in there and just let the buyer decide if they want to do it or not. But if it's a wood structure, you know, you probably want to have them do a termite. I usually don't ask for home warranties on condos because if it's a rental property, home warranties are they can be worth it and they cannot, because with a home warranty, I don't know if anybody has any experience, you have to call them and they have to call somebody out. And if it's a rental property and they have guests in there, they can't wait for the Old Republic to decide to do something.
You don't give those as closing gifts?
I can other things as closing gifts. First time home buyer probably would, but do you give them as closing gifts? Oh. Do you know somebody that does?
I've seen it quite a few times on the settlement statement.
Property taxes. All right, so section 17, this is the owners association assessments. So on that section, I tend to on C and D check seller on both of them, just because we don't always know what's going on. And I know that if I set the expectation with the buyer, they're probably going to counter section D because the seller doesn't want to pay assessment that's due after closing. But we're going to do some due diligence and find out. But I've had people not check it, and it kind of worked out for my buyer because something popped up. So I'll always check that. You don't need a survey and elevation certificate, so I just put is not contingent upon. Closing dates. Closing dates, if it's a cash, I'll usually do 2 to 3 weeks. If it's financing, I'll do 4 to 6 weeks, depending on what the lender wants.
How is the flood done? How is the flood insurance done, or is there a requirement?
If they're on a bottom floor, or even maybe first floor, the lender might want them to have it. I've seen that, but not much. I think when I saw that one time, it was an out-of-town lender. But again, if they're on the bottom floor, they probably want to get flood insurance, but it's really going to be flood for their contents, right? So the association's going to have flood for the building. They're just going to need it for their contents.
Just curious, like this building, you know, had a lot of water coming through the walls, right? And so
That's
I know a lot of
wind-driven
companies
rain.
do- I'm sorry,
Wind-driven rain.
as that was versus one.
I mean, I've worked in insurance. That back when I worked in insurance, that's what it was considered. Flooding's rising water.
It's still is. I just left a year ago.
Huh?
I just left insurance a year ago. It still is.
Yeah.
Wind driven.
Yeah.
It's just rising water from something is considered flood.
Earnest money. Yep. I do that. 1% is my rule of thumb.
I do that. Mhm.
And just make sure on 32 that you have that you've requested all of the HOA information. That's really it. I don't usually write anything there on condos. Unless it's something like this one I have written in that's contingent on them seeing it in person, because I just did a virtual showing. But any questions? Property management, we talked about that. They can use their own, they can use on-site if it's there, they can manage it themselves unless it is like a Phoenix All Suites. Current rentals. So if everything I've learned is kind of because I've been in a situation. If the property is currently in a rental program, it does say in our contract that they have to provide all that information within 5 days. Again, agents probably won't do it. They just don't. But if your people are buying it as a primary residence or a second home, like they don't want to rent it, that really needs to be dealt with pretty early on. Be proactive on that, especially if we're going into like a busy season, because it's if they've got a book of business, if they've got the next 2 months rented and it's closing on May 20th and they've got a whole summer of bookings, that could be a difference in negotiation. So if it's something that is important to your client, if you're representing the buyer and they do not want to honor bookings, I would put it in the purchase agreement that they don't intend to honor any bookings after closing. You can get a lot of pushback. Yeah. I got pushback one time. So it's better to just disclose. If something is important, just disclose it. Now, could it hurt them in negotiations potentially? Because if it is going in the summer and they've got a book of business and these sellers go out, this management company's been so good to me, I don't want to do this to them. It could, but I mean, if your people don't want to honor the bookings, yeah. Because in the lease section of our contract, here's what it says. It says, if this property is subject to any lease, management agreements, or license agreements, this offer will be contingent on buyer's acceptance thereof. Seller has 5 business days following acceptance of this agreement to provide all copies to the buyer. Buyer should have 5 business days from receipt of these documents to notify seller in writing if not acceptable, or this contingency shall be removed. But let me just tell you, listing agents are not going to just send this to you. They're just not. They don't. This was not always part of our contract. They added this, 2 years ago? And people just don't, they don't do it. So if it's something that's important to your buyers, then you need to push up for it.
Yeah, if they're gonna, honor those bookings, do they have to keep them under the same property management
Yep.
company?
Those bookings belong to the management company. If they go change management companies, the management company is gonna move them to another property. Or they're gonna really try to convince you to let them honor those if they don't have anywhere to move them. That's the thing, going into the summer, it can get really kind of sticky if you're closing anywhere from May to August, because the properties are booked. So,
Or if they go through like VR?
So if they honor, if they honor the bookings, so the management company gets their fees, so who gets the part, the new buyer or the seller who already had them on the books?
whoever owns the property during the time of that rental. So let's say you're buying a
Okay, that's what I
property,
thought.
somebody's buying a property and there's a guest in there for that week. They're closing on Wednesday. The way our contract reads, that rental will be prorated. So if they checked in on a
Right.
Sunday night, the current owner would get, 3 nights rent, and then the new owner would get the remaining 4 nights or whatever it is.
Okay. Makes sense.
There's something else I was going to say on that. VRBO and Airbnb, if you're selling a property that they manage themselves, it is not easy to transfer those bookings. You can't transfer them. So that's just when you have a client like that you're from the selling side, just kind of have a conversation with them early on, like, we need to start thinking about how you want to handle this. The best way I've really found is they basically, the current owner has to reach out to these guests and say, hey, I've sold my property. The new owner wants to honor your booking, but I have to cancel. And tell them that the new owner will be reaching out to them. Then they'll cancel the booking, and then the new owner, then the seller has to give all the contact information to the new owner. Then they have to call them and rebook them. Now, if it's a booking that's coming up, so let's say they're canceling, they're closing May 15th, they got somebody checking in May 20th, VRBO can take like up to some ridiculous amount of time to refund the money, like 2-3 weeks or something. So I've had to do it where the seller kind of saw that booking through, and it was a little bit of a trust between the buyer and seller that the seller was going to give them the money. But that's just something that if you have a seller that's the way they manage it, you need to have a conversation on the front end with them. I had a buyer and seller one time that got together and they just transferred the account. They just went and changed all the information that VRBO doesn't want you to know. So but I stayed out of it. What questions?
What do you do when you are listing the contract, like the stuff that you get together, that you're gonna need? So like financials, all that stuff, are you having those conversations with the people ahead of time?
No, I just get my condo sheet filled out. If I don't have the docs, I will get them out of public records. I think that's it. And once I get a contract, then I'll go request the financials, but I don't request it before I have a binding contract. HOAs are kind of funny handing that stuff out without a binding contract.
I've had to pay for them. Here the last 2
Oh, yeah, I've paid for several.
Mhm.
Yeah. So,
You ever do comps outside that condo complex?
yes. Well, when I'm running comps for somebody, I always try to look in that condo complex. But then if it's old data, like I was doing one this morning and the last sale was last July. That's kind of old, especially in this market. So what I'll try to do is look at other condo complexes that are similar age, similar size, blah, 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 similar location. Any other questions?
What's your secrets to selling?
Where's my ass off?
James?
I don't know. I think it's just knowing your market, talking like you know what you're talking about. But don't lie. If you don't know the answer. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that there's any secret sauce. It's just knowing your market and not being afraid to talk to people and being knowledgeable in your market and what you're selling, and being able to talk to buyers. I mean, they can pick up on it if you know what you're talking about. They can tell. So. But I did work my butt off the first 5 years. I still work a lot. That's hard.
You find your leads.
Well, Carl, I'll be honest, at this point in the game, a lot of my business is referrals and repeats. I mean, that's a big percentage. If you don't have that, I would start cold calling. I would call expireds. I've never wanted to pay for leads, but there are options out there you can pay for leads. I just never have. But those are, I mean, there's a I used to use this. It's called Coal Resource. It was like $1,900 for the year or something. I don't remember. It wasn't cheap, but it would pull phone numbers for me. I didn't love it, but I would pull a condo complex and tell it to pull the numbers, and maybe 20% of them would be good, and just call people. But I think Geo Leads with an inside Red X is probably about the same cost, maybe a little bit more. You pay it on the monthly. And it'll pull information for you.
And so if you're looking for listings, what you're looking for buyers, and any secret there?
I don't know. I feel like buyers are coming out of the woodworks. What's the secret, Austin? Find buyers. Not Zillow. That's not
That dude
Zillow.
right there.
Huh?
That dude right there.
Who?
That phone.
Yeah. Just start talking, calling everybody you know. I mean, you can't be afraid to talk to people. To the gas station, when you're pumping gas, somebody's standing there, just talk to them. I mean, it's 1 in 2 in 100 might turn into something, but it's just all about talking to people. But listen, even if you're calling people that own condos, they buy more than one. Sometimes they want to sell and buy up. Sometimes they want to sell and buy down. Do you not want listings?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
They don't hang out with poor people. That's right. That's
I'm
right.
just saying, you know, so I get cold calling for listings for sure. It seems to be.
I think you cold call to ask them how you can help them.
Yeah, that's what. Typically, yeah.
I mean, that's how I've always approached it. Is how can I help you? And they might be looking to buy. Well, you know, it's funny you call because we ever consider buying another condo. And if you get a listing, great.
Agent on duty.
There you go. Agent on duty.
Agent on duty.
Today. Did somebody get some leads on agent on duty?
I'm licensed in Georgia and Alabama, and I got a lot of deals on agent on duty.
There you go. Do you sign up for duty?
Yeah.
I mean, you're here a lot. Okay. Yeah. I think it is the 20th of the month that opens up at 11 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What other questions? Oh, I'll tell you a question I get asked all the time. Huh? What was that?
I have a question, Heather. So if you have a client that's doing some upgrades to sell, you said they need to notify the HOA so that the insurance is in place for the replace what's
If the HOA is not going to cover insurance for upgrades, it's their individual insurance policy, that HO6 policy. So they need to contact their insurance agent.
okay, not the HOA at all. Okay, that's what I couldn't hear you when you said that. Great, thank you.
Question I get asked all the time: what kind of return do these condos have? What kind of return do these condos have, Austin?
Rule of thumb, 10%.
Not anymore. I don't think it's like 8% now, because the prices have gotten so high.
Rule of thumb, that can go either way.
I quote 8% right now, because I feel like there's something closer to 8%. But it used to be, I mean, 10% was my rule of thumb, and it was 10% for a lot of years, but it's just not as much anymore. The prices are going up.
Are you considering also the mortgage on that?
That's gross. That's before any expenses. So I always tell them 8% or 8 to 10% gross. And I'll be honest, if somebody's got to buy a condo and they're financing it and they've got HOA fees and this, it's going to be a negative. Not guaranteed, but it may not be, it might be a $2,000 a year loss. It may not be huge. Run the numbers. But it's getting more, in my opinion, it's getting harder and harder to cash flow just because the prices have gotten where they are.
So what are you telling buyers?
Although the interest rates don't.
What are you telling buyers on how they're going to make money?
So, you know, a lot of them, some of them are looking for a loss for tax purposes. So I just always tell them, you know, it's something you want to discuss with your accountant, you know, and the other way to look at it is that I tell them is these properties are gaining a 6% on average year over year. So that's where your growth is really going to be. You've got somebody else is paying for it, and you get to come on vacation and you're not paying somebody else's mortgage. That's pretty much the conversation I have. You're paying your own mortgage. So I mean, just think about it. If it is a $2,000 loss, but they get to come down here 2 weeks out of the year, I mean that, you know what I'm saying? So, and some of them will be more than 2,000. But I mean, usually it's when I run the numbers, and this is not a definitive, but when I run the numbers, it's usually less than a $5,000 a year loss. Now, if they're putting 10% down, might be a little different. But if they put 20 or 25% down.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. Some people are probably stretching themselves a little bit.
I think a lot of people think they can come down here and make a ton of money.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm real frank with people up front because I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste my time. If they think they're going to come down here and buy a condo and they're going to, make $10,000 a year after they pay all the expenses, like I don't want them to believe that. I don't want them to. I mean, that's not reality. And I've had. I'm a little too frank probably with people, but I've had people have conversations and I just tell them, look, if that was the market, every investor in the United States would be mine. Would be snatching these properties up. It's just not. But there are people that are cash flow. It can be done, especially if you manage it yourself. That's the other piece I tell people. If you got a full service management company, plus all these other expenses, it does. That's what it's called.
So if you're buying another rental, you're gonna rent it out. What is the normal financing? Are they doing 30-year notes on it right now?
Oh yeah. If it qualifies for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loan, well, most people are doing a 30-year conventional mortgage.
Well, a 30-year fixed note, and they put 25% down every year.
But they possibly could be a small amount. It just depends on that's not something I can say definitively across the board. It depends on the property. If it's updated, if the condo's updated, it's going to rent a lot better than something that's tired and outdated. So there's so many variables that could go with it. Any other questions?
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. All right. I'm sure we didn't cover everything, but that's a start.
Joey's,
Thank you.
Heather, can we get Joey's contact information?
Joey Parker? 269 8328.
833?
8328.
8323?
8328.
Oh, all right, I got it.